Woo! Hey, you heard the music. It's Thursday. It's a little after 9 o'clock, so it's time for the workplace, and we are live in 2025. I hope everybody had a great New Year's. And hope you're excited about the year coming up and everything. And so, you hear the music, so we got work to do in 2025. The same work we were doing in 2024, the same work we've been doing for so many years. So thank you for tuning in to KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. So I'm your host for the workplace, Toney Orr, and as always, my co-host is in studio, the Reverend Doctor.
Yeah, you can call me Denise. Thank you all so much for joining us in this space on this day. I do have an announcement, Toney, if that's okay. I just want to put a shout out for the community voices, and I am working on the schedule for next year. So if you all have any people that you consider to be voices of the community that you want to hear from on Tuesday mornings from 9 to 10 o'clock, last year, many of the voices that you heard, listeners recommended to me. I did not have a personal relationship with them until you introduced us. And so I'm still counting on you to do that for next year. If you want to hit me up directly, you can do that at 228-236-7440. Again, my direct line is 228-236-7440. If you would rather call into the office at 501-372-6119 and leave your recommended name for Charles, he'll be more than happy to take that message and send it to me. But whoever it is that you want to hear from, holler at me and we'll make it happen. Thank you so much.
Okay. And I just also want to just thank all of you for not just tuning in today, but all that you do for KABF 88.3 FM. We could not be the voice of the people without your voice, pushing us and encouraging us to, whatever we do, whether it's in music, whether it's in talk shows, whether it's in information that we give out. We just thank you for all that you do. Looking forward to a great year for KABF. I believe this is going to be an outstanding year for the station, but also I think it's going to be an outstanding year for a lot of different things. And just remember that we do what we do because of what you do. And just wanted to ask you to continue to give and support KABF in every way possible. So thank you. Thank you.
Tony, I do have a couple of more announcements. These just came in as you were talking. This announcement is from Ron McAdoo. 2025 is here. Come out and get ready for it. Please plan to join this epic vision board party. It's happening on Friday, January 3rd at 7 p.m. at 108 East 4th Street in North Little Rock. The admission, though, is $10. A vision board party, Friday, January 3rd. That's this Friday. Today is Wednesday, so 2 days from now at 7 p.m. at 108 East 4th Street in North Little Rock. And also, this message is from Angola. Angola. Agnolia, May. First Tuesday's Poetry Night. Tribute to Nikki Giovanni on January 7th. So that's next Tuesday. At doors open at 7 p.m. The show starts at 7. It's from 7 to 10. It's at the Looney Bin. The special guests are Agnolia Gay and Stacey McAdoo and Katina Harper and Terrence Bolden, the LC Daisy Bates House Museum Foundation, and more. So please join us on First Tuesdays for Poetry Night. This Tuesday, the tribute is to Nikki Giovanni.
Okay. It's so one thing that happened to me this morning. I go to 10 Fitness, and I changed the time that I go work out. I get up at 3. I'm at the gym by 3:15. And one of the reasons I changed my time, I used to go at 5 o'clock in the morning, but I changed it so I could go at 3, and then once I get back home, normally I get back home by 4:30, and that'll give me a couple more, give me about another hour to to try to get me a little rest and everything before I head out to work. And so this morning, when I went yesterday morning, on Wednesday morning, just like pretty much every other morning, normally it's nobody in there but me. In the whole gym, normally there's nobody in there but me. And every now and then, it may be 1 or 2 other people, but never no more than a couple of people. And so this morning, and I'm talking about the 10 Fitness on Rodney Perrin, where the old Kmart used to be. And so when I got there this morning and I turned into the parking lot, I mean, it was packed. I'm like, what's going on? Where all these people come from? And I go in, I mean, it's just people everywhere. I said, what's going on? And so one of the regular, one of the people that I see regularly at 10 Fitness, he looked at me, he said, it's, you can tell when it's New Year's because you got all these people in the gym. And it made me think, I said, I wonder how long is this going to last? How long are people going to get up at, be at the gym at 3:30 or 3:15, 3:30 in the morning? Or is this some resolution that they said, well, I'm going to get better. I'm going to try to get fit. That's my resolution, to get fit. And it always amazed me, it's amazing to me when people make these resolutions that they, because either it's going to be a true what you're going to do, or you're just lying to yourself. It makes you feel good to begin with, but then eventually you get back to your normal routine. And so, in thinking about that, I thought about how many people have made these resolutions to do things that eventually is going to fall to the wayside. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying they will. But in my mind, I'm thinking, give it a couple of months, and then it'll be back to normal, where it's me and maybe another other person is in the gym. And then I thought about listening to the news this morning. They were talking about some things that that states have kicked in because of the new year. Some bills, some laws that have been kicked in because of the new year. And going back to what I said earlier about either it's the truth or it's a lie. So it's some resolutions that these state governments made last year, that this year, that on January 1st this year, got kicked in. One of them in Arkansas is that now the Learns Act is open up for all students. It used to be that I think the first year, if you had a special needs child, or you're a military veteran, or some other things that you could use. Then last year, they added a little bit more, but this year it's just completely open to where you can you can apply for your child to go to any school, including private schools, and you'll be paid for it. And also another thing that kicked in is the amount of money per student, because it went up. So the amount of money per student actually went up. So where it was, I think it was about $7,000, $8,000 you can get. Now it's almost up to $10,000 that you can get for your child to go to a private school. Also in other states, these abortion laws, the reproductive laws kicked in. Some states, they minimum wage kicked in. And so in thinking about this, I said, wow, it's some resolutions that were made that made sure that got kicked in. They made sure that whatever we decided is going to happen. And then it goes back to us. There are some things, that resolutions that we said, or people say, I'm going to do this, but then back off. And I think a lot of times it becomes problematic, because when you're trying to move forward, whether trying to move work forward, trying to move workers forward, or trying to move legislation that will cover the workplace, or trying to move legislation that will move justice, trying to move legislation that will improve healthcare. A lot of times there are people right now who's decided that, this year, I'm going to resolve to be more involved. I'm going to resolve to fight more. I'm going to be resolved to learn more. I'm going to be resolved to try to be a better human. I'm going to be resolved to try to understand so many different things and be better and do better. But then you get to a point where you say, that's hard work. That's some hard work. I just go back to what I was doing. But the people who are making these policies, they ain't backing off. They're not getting tired. They're not like, hey, I ain't going, we're not going back to what it was. We're trying to move something different. And so I just want to talk about that this morning. Are we willing to create a lie just because it's a new year, and only go so far and then back off from that truth that we said we was going to do? Or is it just a lie? Or is it just, why not just say, what? I'm just going to do the same old. Because the one thing we did find out on yesterday, on New Year, the one constant that has not changed in this country, period, is the violence perpetrated on other people. Whether it was the violence in New Orleans, whether it was the car blowing up in Las Vegas, or the violence that were perpetrated in Brooklyn, New York, yesterday. So violence is still there. We can say that, we're going to do things about violence, but is that a lie? Is that the truth, or is that a lie? Because if you want to do something about violence, then you have to change how you move and how you push for new laws and new legislations. And so I just want to get the listening audience take on it. What do you think? How do you feel about how do you feel about making these things or saying these things that you're going to do and then not doing it?
Well, Lo responds to you by saying, when you mentioned what happened in New Orleans, when you mentioned what happened in Las Vegas, he said, this is the hate that hate produced. The hate that hate produced. That was his response to you bringing up the violence that continues in our country and across the world. I want to take issue with you saying that those of us who make New Year's resolutions are simply lying. I don't believe that that's the case for all of us. I think that we are really sincere when we say, this is how I want to begin the year, and this is how I want to, this is a practice, a discipline that I want to have all year long. I don't think that that's a lie for many of us. What I think is that life be lifing. And even though that is a resolution that we make, we cannot anticipate, we cannot foresee what's going to happen during the year that might disrupt the schedule that we have put into place. I know that Dr. Karama Neal and I have decided to become writing accountability partners, where we check in every single day to make sure that we are writing, because we are writers, we are authors. It is our goal to become published in this year. But we also know that the beginning of the year also brings an uptick in our professional schedules. So we don't know what clients we're going to have that are going to disrupt that schedule. So just because we aren't able to keep up with what we said we were going to keep up, that doesn't mean we were lying. It means that life interrupts what we planned, because we can't control life, and we have to figure out how to adjust. And so to say that we're lying, I don't believe that's the case. And we need to give people permission to say, yes, that is what I thought I was going to do. But when something comes up to change that, then my goal is to figure out, how do I adjust? How do I re-navigate? So it might not look the same. The resolution might not look the same, but that does not mean that it isn't the same. And so I don't want you to call me a liar.
Well, I mean, I'm not calling anybody per se a liar. What I said was that, is that if there are people who say, I'm going to do this, and yes, life happens. Yeah, but there are people who are going to say, I'm going to do this, but then, get to a point where they say, you know what? That's too much hard work. And I said that's too much hard work. So I'm going back to my normal, regardless if it's going to help other people, regardless if I'm committed to moving things forward, regardless if I want to change some things, regardless if I want my body to be healthier, regardless of that, I'm going back to what I was, because this is too hard. And I frame that going back to what these legislators, these lawmakers are doing. They don't care about what life is doing for them. They don't care about that. What they care about is that I'm putting forth this resolution, in a bill that says this is going to happen. And I don't care what happens to me. All I care about is this being pushed forward. And I understand. Everybody, you're right. Everybody's life is different. Everybody has to deal with different circumstances. But it comes to a point when some people say, I want to make this commitment to change things. And if life hits me and I have to adjust, that's one thing. But if I just decide it's just that's just too much work. That's just too much work to try to change this and change that. So I'm just going to go back to my normal. I'm just going to go back to, letting things be the way they are, and I don't have to worry about it.
So here's what Ruby Annette Carter Welch says. Good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Ruby.
I don't make resolutions. I have plans that don't always go as planned.
Right.
Which makes sense. I have plans that don't always go as planned. Yeah. And so for you to say that these legislators are instituting these laws because they don't care. But the laws that they institute directly affect our bodies. So regardless of my plans, regardless of my resolutions, not only do I have to manage and navigate my own life, I now have to also manage and navigate what's happening to me as a result of these legislators. So to say that it's too hard and I just give up because it's too hard and I'm going to revert back, I don't think that's a fair assessment. I think that people are overwhelmed with trying to live as humans within a system that is inhumane. And so it's not that I'm giving up because it's too hard. It's because this world has not set up the proper structures to help us deal with mental health, to help us tend our bodies, to help us practice radical self-care, to help us recognize that to practice radical self-care is an act of resistance. We don't have those structures in place. So I don't think that people are like, oh, it's just too hard. I think that people are overwhelmed with the constant barrage of discrimination and oppression and power and domination, and we have not given people the tools that they need to navigate it. So stop judging me for not being able to navigate it because I don't have the tools. We got to figure out how to help people get those tools.
And I don't have a problem with that. What I'm saying is, again, if we want to get those tools, if we want to change it, if we want to make it better, if we want to see a different way of living, a different way of thinking, a different way of doing things, then it comes a point where you have to say, you know what, regardless of how tired I am, I understand I'm tired. I understand I'm overwhelmed. I understand that all this is going on. But I have to make that effort to keep pushing forward. And here's one thing I want to say. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. Everybody, it's not for everybody. You have to figure out what it's going to, how you're going to do it, what you need to do, and then figure out, can I do it? What's my plan of getting this done? And like I said, it's not for everybody. But I see people who say, I'm committed to this. Because going back to what I'm saying about these lawmakers, they are committed, period, in making sure that you don't get the health care you need, you don't get the education you need, you don't get the wages you need, you don't get the housing you need, you don't get these things. I'm committed to this. And so I'm trying to just throw it out there, are people going to push their commitment to overturn these things or to change these things? Or are you going to get to a point to say, you know what, I'm just tired?
I think it's easy for you to say these kinds of things because of the positions of power that you hold.
I'm not in a position of power.
But positions of privilege, you can call it whatever you want to call it.
I don't think I live in a position of privilege.
Okay, can I talk? Is it okay if I talk?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay. So I let you talk. Let me talk. So for people like you and me, I don't mind putting myself in the same situation where you have a job where you are full-time and flexible. You don't have to work 2 and 3 jobs. You don't have children that are considered minors that you have to care for. You don't have a situation where you're trying to figure out whether or not you're going to buy food or you're going to buy medicine. Like, that's not your situation. And so for you to sit in those positions of privilege, which does give you power to say, well, y'all just give it up because y'all getting tired. Again, I do not think that is a fair assessment. I think the issue should be raised for those of us who say, listen, we are able to be in that space. We are able to hold it down. We are able to dismantle. We are the ones who need to have this conversation instead of saying, oh, you just tired. Because those people aren't tired because they gave up because like, I just don't feel like I'm just going to revert back. That's not what's happening. The systems are affecting their bodies in ways that they cannot respond. So the question is to those of us who are able to ask this question, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing to make sure that not just that you compete, not just that you confront the lawmakers, but what are you doing to make sure that the people who don't have access? Instead of talking about what the lawmakers are doing, what are we as a collective of those who have privilege, what are we doing to make sure that we are creating safer spaces, that we are building the connections, that we are building the businesses, that we are putting up grocery stores in food deserts? Like, what are we doing instead of the people who fall back on their resolutions because they tired? Is that really what's going on? Or is it that those of us who can talk, that's all we talk, that's all we're doing, we're talking and we're not, there's no action behind what we say? Hold on just a minute. Let me get this question in from Lo. Lo says, is it up to the lawmakers or the people to enforce the will of the people? That's his question. Is it up to the lawmakers or the people to enforce the will of the people?
Call you on there.
Peace and love to all. This is Brother Toby. Now, we have to really pinpoint major problems. We always say cause and effect, effects and cause, constructive and non-constructive. Now, when it comes to cause and effect, the major problem that we have to refer to is the race problem. And this race problem, which we call the system of white supremacy racism, or the system of inhumanity. Now, we have to know that it is our duty to try to eliminate this problem. Now, all of our major problems are caused by this thing that we have to eliminate. They affect us in all areas of people activity. I always used to say economic, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war or counter war. Now, I always say us being codified is what's going to do it. But sometimes we don't want to talk about codes, and because we used to always think about what the black code used to be about. But we, as what they call blacks, need to adopt a code that will eliminate the systems, because back to cause and effect. That racist system causes all our problems. If I'm trying to make it as plain as I can, but like I say, we start out the year saying we're going to do this and that, but everything that affects us in all areas of people activities is pointing back to that major cause. When we can pinpoint why the lawmakers do what they do, why they always talking about blocking reparations when they know they have done us wrong and caused all kind of atrocities and killings for hundreds of years, or whether they're bombing over in the Gaza Strip, or whether they're starving people in Africa, it all points back to that major problem, the system of white supremacy racism that needs to replace with a system of justice. And justice meaning no one is mistreated, and those that need the constructive, we talked about constructive and destructive, now it's being destructive. But we need to come back to being constructive. I don't want to take too much of your time, but like I say, it's our duty. Sometimes some of us will block each other and be our own worst enemies. And work together to stop this major problem. Again, peace and love to all.
Get some change done. And going back to these lawmakers, these legislators, they don't care about what your life is. All they care about is their own agenda. Their own agenda. And so we have to, I think, some of us, not all of us, once again, this is not for everybody, but those of us who are going to say that, you know what, if I want that person who doesn't have health care, that person who doesn't have adequate housing, if I want that person to get something, to have something or to get these things, and I make that commitment to do it, then either we're going to follow through, either I'm going to follow through with it, or I'm going to just say, forget it. And so I think that we're in a situation where we see what's happening. We see what's happening. And going back to something that the question Lo asked, yes, it's the people that should be controlling the laws instead of these lawmakers who dismiss the people.
Yeah, but the problem is that first of all, we have to continue to remind people that we are not living in a democracy. We live in a republic. And for those of you who continue to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, that's what you say. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So that's what you are saying. You are recognizing through your own words, whether you're thinking about it or not, that this is a republic. The republic means that we vote in people to represent us. And so all of the people do not have a say. Only those people that the republic counts, which are those people that are recognized by the Electoral College. Those are the only people that count. Yes, Lowe says the illusion of democracy. That's what they've given us, the illusion of democracy. So because it's a republic that we live in, we are depending on those who represent us in these spaces to enforce the will of the people. But the problem is that those of you who are in those spaces, we can't trust you because you tell us on the outside that you want to fight for health care. You tell us on the outside that you want to dismantle the system of white inhumanity. You tell us all that we want to hear on the outside, but when you are at that table, you make compromises for your own good to the detriment of the rest of us. And so those of us who used to say we get tired, what we're tired of is depending on people like you, whoever you say you are, that's doing the work, because you're not really doing the work. You're only looking out for self. That's who makes us tired.
Call you on there.
Hey guys, absolutely 100% agree with y'all on that. Definitely gives me like oligarch feeling to where it is, they may say, that they're there for you, but in reality, their only interests are within, these corporations, these businesses that are for their benefit and for those people that are involved with that.
Say it again, Carla. Say it again. We didn't hear the first part. Start over, please.
Oh, okay. I was saying that I completely agree with you guys. Y'all are on point with that. It almost seems like, as far as being like a republic, as well as being like an oligarch, like, I don't know if oligarchical is a word, but an oligarchy society to where we may think that we have these leaders, but these leaders are actually, with these corporations and with their lobbyists and with the super PhDs and the PhDs that are with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to say. You guys have a great one.
All right. Yeah, and the call is right. It's true, and I do agree with you on your point, Denise. Is that the people we depend on, to look out for us. In the end, they're looking out for their best interests. Somebody once said this to me, and I'm not saying this is for every legislator or everybody who takes office, but the majority, a lot of people who run for office, they run on this platform that they're going to make change. They run on this platform that, hey, I'm gonna be that person that makes a difference. But then they get at that table and they realize that, okay, it's going to be some things I'm going to have to compromise on, or it's going to be some things that, money going to be thrown at them, given positions of committees and all these other things, basically to get you to vote their way or get you to believe in what they want you to believe in. And next thing you know, you move away from your original plan or your agenda to do what you said you was going to do. And I think that's part of the problem that we run into, is that now we put our trust in this person, but this person now has put their trust in the system. And and they don't want, they may have fought the system before they got in office, but now they become a part of the system, and everything that that we believe this person would have done or should have done, it never happens. And one of the things that keeps going, one of the things that will constantly happen, that consistently happens, is that person will still come back, for re-election and say the same things that they said to get re-elected, and people will still vote for them, even though they haven't done anything to the best interest of changing these things that need to be changed.
And so Lowe says in response to that, then the masses should not re-elect them. The people's needs are not being met. Throw the knuckleheads out. I'm gonna say hashtag voter education. And so for me, that I agree with Lowe that clearly the system of politics in America does not work. Like, clearly, it is corrupt. It does not work. It is motivated by money. It continues to fuel the system of capitalism. It does not work. And so for those of us who do want to affect change, we have to stop listening to buying into that lie that says the only way that you can't, because people have told me this so many times, Denise, if you want to affect change, you can't affect change from the outside. You got to be on the inside. So we need you to run for office so you can be on the inside so that you can affect change. That does not work, because once you get on the inside, it's exactly what you said. You're going to end up compromising. You're going to end up sacrificing yourself to the system, and you're not going to achieve the goals that you had in mind before you got elected. And so what we have to do is dismantle that system. I cannot remember the caller. I really want to say that it was a white man, because that's how I experienced his voice. I might be wrong on that, but that's how I experienced his voice. And what he said was his vision and his goal of the system is where every single person has a vote. Whatever issue comes up, you put the issue, you put the vote to the people. Every person in the United States, does not matter if you're formerly incarcerated, does not matter if you're not in a state that the electoral colleges count. The electoral college counts. It does not matter. If you are a citizen of the United States of America, you get to vote on every single issue, and whatever the people decide, that is what happens. That's the system that we should be fighting for, because that's the system that would recognize every voice. And until we have that kind of system, then we are doing ourselves a disservice to keep saying, well, if I keep trusting, sooner or later, if I keep hoping, sooner or later, if I keep praying, sooner or later, if I keep believing, sooner or later. That's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is a true democracy where everybody has a vote. And it's so amazing as I travel around this world and go to other countries where everybody votes. Everybody has a vote, and it's always decided, and it's decided by who gets the most votes. And whatever issue, whoever votes the most for that issue, and that issue becomes the law, that issue gets put in place. Another thing that happens, and going back to what we're talking about when someone enters into office, to do this work, and if you become someone who's at the table and starts to say that, hey, no, this bill is not, you're not going to get my endorsement for this bill. No, you're not going to get my endorsement for this, because I'm here to represent the people. I'm here to look out for the people who sent me to this office. They're the ones that are going to suffer over this. I'm not going to do it. And so what happened, because the system is so corrupt, the other people, even your own party, will come together to get somebody else. So we're going to run somebody else against you because you upset the status quo. You're trying to make change. And so that's what I mean about the compromise, is that it becomes a point where a person may say, is it more important that I get reelected, or is it more important that I stand my ground to make sure that the people I represent are adequately represented, and that these bills that you're putting forth before me aren't things that are going to help the people that I represent? And so, that's what part of that compromise becomes. I'm saying, if you don't want to compromise, then we'll make sure you get out of office, where we'll get somebody in who will make the compromise.
Here's what Lowe says. Really? The system counts prisoners for federal allocation of funds, yet prisoners cannot vote. No representation, yet they are being used to count dollars. I'm going to read it again. Really? The system counts prisoners for federal allocation of funds, yet prisoners cannot vote. No representation, yet they are being used to count dollars. And so I do think that there are people who have entered into the political sphere that really are trying to affect change. And they do end up compromising, and they compromise because they believe that the compromise is going to put them in a position to move forward their agenda. But what really happens is that no matter how much you compromise, politics is a numbers game. When you look at the state of Arkansas, and it's like this usually across the South for sure, the numbers, many of us who live in the South, we're living in a Republican trifecta. So even though you are in there and you think that you are, and you believe that you are there to affect change, we even believe that you are there to affect change, you don't have the numbers that give you any power to do anything. And so you're there and you're talking the good talk, you're fighting the good fight, but you're getting defeated every time. And so you spend all your time trying to mitigate the law. So you're trying to work to make sure that they are not as bad as they could be, which is also good work, but it doesn't move us forward in the progress that we're trying to make toward collective liberation. So again, how well is your time being spent in political office when you can't get nothing done because you don't have any power, because you don't have the numbers? So how do we get the numbers? We get the numbers outside of that system, and that's where we should be focusing our attention.
Yeah, I agree. Because and you said something that's so important in the South, and that's why it was so important. It was so important that a couple of years ago, when I was in Georgia, working on the campaigns of Raphael Warnock, Senator Raphael Warnock, and Senator Ossoff, that even in a Republican dominated state like Georgia, that we were able to get them elected.
Yes, we were able to get them elected, but what was the backlash to them getting elected, right? They came right back in this last election and turned Georgia red all the way over again. And so again, the system of politics that we are in now does not work in our favor. So y'all did all that work. Y'all was on the ground. Y'all was boots on the ground. Y'all was knocking doors. The election, you won it. We celebrated. Some people said, praise the Lord, hallelujah, and all of that. And we are right back where we started from.
Yeah. But I don't think it was. I don't think it was about we did all the work and we're right back. I think the problem is that there's always going to be a punch back. So you do the work and you continue to do the work. But as I always said, people are the wild card. So when you come back, and was it this year in the election? Was it that people didn't do the work in Georgia? Did the same amount of work or even more happen in Georgia? Or was it that people looked and said, and this where other factors come into play? Did people say, you know what, we don't want a black woman for president? Do we? Or we don't want, we don't want a woman, period, for president. We don't want a black woman for president. Now all those isms come into play. Racism, sexism, all that come into play. And those are things that, those are the isms are the things that really need to be worked on to get it out of, to get rid of. Because as long as those isms play, it's difficult to move in a whole new direction, because at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to fall back to their isms.
Well, the isms have been in place since the beginning of time. So the isms didn't just start with Georgia, and the isms didn't just start with this last election. So they've always been at play. The problem, the way I see it, is that when we're talking about the two-party system, I recognize that there are other parties that are active in America, but the two-party system is dominant, Republicans and Democrats. And the problem that I see is that Republicans are cutthroat. Democrats are trying to be those that are empathetic, those that are sympathetic, those that are diverse, those that are progressive. That's what we say. And so we spend a lot of time trying to do the quote unquote right thing in our minds. We spend a lot of time trying to compromise. We spend a lot of time trying to go across the aisle. We spend a lot of time trying to do all of that. And so it's like you bringing a knife to a gunfight. And so if you're not going to fight the fight that's in front of you, now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that the Democrats should be evil. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I'm suggesting if you're going to fight, you got to fight on an even playing field. And you're not fighting on an even playing field because you are not willing to do what it takes. It's the same thing I say about Black folks all the time. If you're going to fight the fight against the system of white inhumanity, you got to be willing to spill blood, whatever that looks like. But we don't want to do that. We want to be holy, and we want to be righteous, and we want to be all of those things which keep us from fighting the fight that's in front of us. And so if we're going to fight the fight that's in front of us, then we're going to have to change our tactics. And many of us are not willing to change the tactics because we are hoping against hope that something is going to change and things are going to get better. And they are not going to get better without us.
Yeah, and going back to, and you're so true with that, because going back to this election, this past election, the one thing that Republicans were ready to do, they had spent. In fact, the Republican National Committee quit sending money to field offices. They quit funding field offices because they said, all the money we have, we're going to hold it so that if the Democrats win, we're going to spend all that money on court. We're going to court. We're going to fight the election to the end. We're going to fight it. Where Democrats, and I remember being on Pat Rogers' War show, Arkansas Talks, she said that, and I think somebody else said it. She said, I don't understand that the Democrats did not put up any resistance to the election, because it just didn't make any sense. Her argument was that it didn't make any sense that you're going to lose all these states, that all this. They said if the Republicans had won, said even if the Democrats would have took it to court, would have filed lawsuits, would have did whatever, and still lost those lawsuits, at least people would, at least it could have been like, you know what, we're not going down without a fight. But like you said, Denise, it was like, oh, okay, we're just gonna respect, we lost, we cool, we're just gonna respect it and move on.
Yeah, because we don't know how to become weapons. And so that's one of the things that I can say about the Republican Party, that they weaponize themselves against the systems. They weaponize themselves against the election. They weaponize themselves against any decision that they don't agree with. But we don't. So when we go back to Georgia, you say, well, was it that they did not, whatever happened, maybe we didn't go back. But the system of white inhumanity is always ready with a backlash, because they are always sitting on ready as weapons to deploy themselves when something doesn't go their way. We don't weaponize, and that is part of our problem.
Right. Call you, Aaron.
Well, thank you so very much. Good morning to you, Sister Denise.
Hey, Ezekiel.
Happy New Year, man.
Good morning, workplace listeners on the radio and on the web, however that is. I just wanted to also say, and I didn't hear anyone mention, I heard someone say something about this electoral process. The Electoral College determines who is the ultimate winner in our one man, one vote system. The President of the United States is the ultimate, if you will, politician. And the victories that are handed to the president is a result of the Electoral College, which is a system that's put in place to minimize or to make ineffective the vote of the disenfranchised, ex-slave or ex-slave descendants vote. That vote really is null and void. Right today on the Supreme Court of Supreme Court of Arkansas, you got a first, but it's a female, a woman. But there are no representation of the ex-slaves vote in the Supreme Court of the state of Arkansas, and no one ever mentions it. That's like, well, what difference does it make? It doesn't matter anyway. Like Denise said, the southern states are just a solid block, if you will, if you know what I mean. So the Electoral College is used to make ineffective your vote. You take a state the size of, say, California, and its vote out of, I don't care who it is not as effective as Wyoming because of the electoral process, Electoral College process. So when we talk about this system of whether it's two-party or however many parties, it doesn't really have the effect of one man, one vote, because in the end, the Electoral College is what's being used to get the president in office, and we haven't had a so-called honest president since Jimmy Carter. He was so righteous or upright that they didn't even elect him the second time around. And he tried to do a lot of things. I heard a young man Monday, Scotty Green, and his uncle was one of the first appointments by Jimmy Carter. He was a former Central High School graduate. He was the first black to graduate from Central High School. And he was a presidential appointee, however you want to call it. So there was a lot of good things that came back from a good, honest man, if you want to call Jimmy Carter that, going into the White House. Clinton subsequently went in there and he appointed some folks, but I hadn't seen anyone do it like Jimmy Carter had done it before. And so he set that trend. But as far as honesty and all these different virtues that we seem to want to have, not to Sister Denise, you say you fight fire with fire, in so many words. We don't really employ those type of strategies, if you will, because oftentimes you have to be just as low down and dirty to get ahead as the next person. We got a senator in South Carolina, Tim Scott. He's just like that. To me, he's just like that man in Django that said, "Who that N-word on that man?" You know, he does it in a more polished way, but he's no more effective as a so-called champion for black rights politician as anybody else. He's probably worse because they use him as a scapegoat to make things say, well, look, we got so-and-so over here doing this and that, and therein lies the problem. We don't have any so-called freedom fighters, if you will, who are elected and do the job that the so-called underserved needs to be done in order to achieve it means to have a good life, good community, better conditions for everything from mental health on down. It's a stacked deck, if you know what I mean. A stacked deck means regardless of what cards you get, they're not going to win because you have other cards that are being played that will negate those cards. And that's the way it is with this system that we have to live under here in America. I don't care where you are. And as far as mental health goes, that is a completely stacked deck. I mean, they can come out to your house 1,000 times because something wrong went on with someone that had a mental problem. And when they get ready, they'll come out and eliminate that problem. They don't care whether she had a knife or whether he had a weapon. Well, we were under the impression that he was going to hurt himself. And they'll even kill you when you're trying to kill yourself. When I tell you, we know who we're talking about. The authorities that respond to these type of situations for the most part. So we can talk forever, but that's not going to get the job done. And it's kind of strange to me that folks that seemingly know so much can never get together and come up with the same response or same strategy to defeat a problem or to make another program better. And that's what I wanted to say. And thank you so much for allowing me to say that. And I don't really practice trips around the sun, New Year's, or however, 365 days. Every day is a new year to me because it's an addition to whatever was old. And I just say blessing and prosperity to all your listeners and those of us who are trying to get ahead. Thank you once again.
All right, thank you, man.
I want to get this comment in from Mr. Henderson. I really appreciate it. It says, with all those gunshots in the Black community on New Year's Eve, no one was shot. And so I want to lift that up because I want to use it to challenge that myth that Black people are so violent. Because when we're talking about, you mentioned it earlier, Tony, with the violence in New Orleans, that was not perpetrated by a Black person. When you talk about the burning of the woman in New York, that was not perpetrated by a Black person. So we got to continue to confront and combat these myths that say that Black people are the most violent people in the world, because that's just what the system of white inhumanity wants you to believe, and that is absolutely not the case.
You're right. Hey, we're out of time. Just want to thank everybody for all our callers for calling in. Want to thank all everybody who commented on Facebook. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. See you next Monday for Down with That. Next Tuesday for Community Voices. Next Thursday for the workplace. Just a quick reminder, next come Sunday night, it's supposed to drop. The temperature is going to drop to the teens. So make sure that you leave a little water running in your faucet. Make sure that everything is, that your heat and everything is working, because it's going to get cold. So just want to put that little reminder out to everyone. And like I said, enjoy the rest of the day. See you later.